HarperCollins presents Live Forever, The Rise, Fall and Resurrection of Oasis by John Robb, read by Daniel Millar. I was the last one to make it from my crowd and from my generation. Noel. I'm made up of all sorts, me. I'm not just an angry little lunatic. People say it's not work being in a band, but it is, but it's also the best fucking job in the world. Liam. Introduction. The Ballad of Noel and Liam. The Ballad of Liam and Noel. In the same way that John, Paul, George and Ringo sum up the 60s, the brothers' very names evoke the 90s. In that decade, Noel and Liam Gallagher were the most famous people in the country. Their attitude, style, hair, banter and rivalry captured the era, and their music soundtracked the pre-internet end of the century. Their relationship and their sibling rivalry was the very core of the band that fascinated fans and the press for years. There's much said about Oasis, and it's all weaponised. They celebrated rock and roll in all its shades, from the sublime to the ridiculous, from the poetic to the profane, and from noise and confusion to its fire and soul. Every great band is a combination of thrilling contradictions. Oasis had both a swagger and a melancholy, juggernaut anthems and sensitive B-sides. They had a willful Mancunian disdain of art while being art rock on their own terms. There was a method to their madness and a pop culture perfection to their bricolage of ideas. They delivered 11 out of 10 riot anthems or acoustic soul-searching songs, which were often on both sides of the same single. There was an introverted sensitivity often lurking below the noise and a poetic twist in lyrics that were often derided by Noel himself for being meaningless. At their heart were the two iconic brothers who were different sides to the same coin. Noel and Liam, yin and yang, Cain and Abel, Morrissey and Marr, Lennon and McCartney, Brown and Squire. Liam and Noel. Noel and Liam. Noel wrote the classic songs and Liam sang them with one of the great rock and roll voices with its mixture of sweetness and rasping intensity. Somehow in their music they found a perfect harmony in their sibling rivalry that also came with a mutual respect, as Noel Gallagher explained to Anne Scanlon in 1995. Liam is young, he's brash. I see a lot of things in him that I'd like to be. I think if you could cross the two of us, we'd be a really fucking good person. They were also a band. Lads with names like Bonehead, Gwigsy and Tony McCarroll grafting a rock-solid unit of their own in the council estates of South Manchester before the Gallaghers took over and the magic happened. They ended up being the last great British rock and roll band in the high-decibel British canon that started with the Beatles and ended in Paris in 2009 when Oasis imploded. They were the end of the 60s dream when rock and roll dared to go over the top. They were the last band from the pre-internet age when music still mattered, before it became the noise in the background. They were at the heart of their own northern working-class revolution, the last gang in town with a close-knit extended family of talented mates. Sound guy Mark Coyle, art designer Brian Cannon, photographer Michael Spencer-Jones, DJ and road crew Phil Smith, the curveball of energy label boss Alan McGee, older brother Paul, plus many others who coalesced around their charismatic core. Oasis helped to define the 90s when, as the UK's biggest band, they swaggered from the Manchester Council estate and put the rock and roll back into the euphoric rush of that post-acid house, post-ecstasy decade before it all inevitably crashed and burned. Unlike most modern bands, Oasis were working-class art. Nothing was handed to them on a plate. There were no stylists or helpers or bank of mum and dad. There was no visionary team of supporters, no Tony Wilson, no Malcolm and Vivian, no future in England's dreaming. Just a kid with an acoustic guitar sat in a council estate bedroom dreaming of escape with a vision. And his wild younger brother who was convinced he was a star, and was right. How far out of the musical loop and how defiantly brilliant they seemed to be as they stood their ground and waited for the adulation. Just like Liam's stock-still stage presence and his dead-eyed stare into the
Sample complete. Ready to continue?